Here's the deal with Amanda. Before startup activity and the startup scene and like everyone was launching a company became the thing to do in Ann Arbor and Detroit, she was doing it. She kind of was a pioneer. She kind of led the way in doing a lot of that work. She's going to unpack some of that for you here today. What I want you to understand is that this is not a conversation story about like polished, amazing press releases and like just nothing but striking it rich and a smooth path towards all things successful. It's about a real founder story going through real founder experiences and times. Along the way, she's found identity and balance as her life has grown and evolved as well. I met her over a decade ago, and she is one of those people who always answers the call. Amanda, is there any chance you can do this? Any chance you could talk to this person? Could we bring some students over here? Yes, 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 yes. She said yes again to come here today to help educate you. Please give her a warm welcome, my friend, Amanda Lewan. How's it going?
Good. Busy season, and fall is a busy season for the innovation ecosystem. So a lot going on already. And happy first week, I guess, to everybody here.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it reminiscing about the idea of being in college?
I can't even remember being in college. It feels like a long time ago, but it wasn't too far away.
It's all blur now, yeah. Okay, well, let's paint the picture for them. For one, open it up. What's one word to describe what it's like to be an entrepreneur today?
I think it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of risk. At the beginning as an entrepreneur, I've been thinking a lot about how it's risk-taking, and then at some point in your journey, it's like risk aversion, because you're growing and scaling and have to kind of manage everything you've built and protect it.
So I'm going to go with fun being the word there. We'll run with that. What about in 2013 when you started? What was the one word that you think described it then?
I think just an idea. Like, it was just a concept. A few of our friends got together and were like, we need a space to work on ideas. There was no accelerators, incubators, resources yet in Detroit. There's one incubator program, and we got rejected a couple times. So we're like, let's just create a space and community for us to work on things.
So everything you see today, Amanda has no idea that I put a slide up for her. So if she's speaking to things she doesn't realize are behind her, that's why. But paint that picture for them. 2013 Detroit and Michigan and the startup scene versus 2025.
So in 2013, it was just the city of Detroit had filed for bankruptcy a couple years prior, I think 2012 or just recently. Dan Gilbert had moved in Quicken Loans. So Dan Gilbert, it was a big catalyst. He's a billionaire who is renovating a bunch of real estate in downtown Detroit. He launched a venture firm called Detroit Venture Partners, one of the first really active venture capital firms in the city. And so it really was like a time where things were starting to change and there was momentum again, but you could still be on a block with abandoned buildings. So definitely a period of reinvention. And, for me, I was just a couple years out of college, had no idea I was going to start a company. I had worked somewhere for a couple years and gotten laid off and thought, I'm just going to work on this idea with my friends for now and then see what happens. So it was a very interesting time. My friend Monica Wheat says it takes a crisis to create any change in an industry. So Detroit was kind of going through a crisis. We had just come out of the 2008 recession and auto crisis. And I think some of those companies and corporations were just waking up to realize we got to make some change or things are not going to keep growing in Detroit.
And, when you heard me describe her as being a pioneer earlier, this is what I'm talking about. There was no pathway to starting a co-working space in Detroit. What the hell is that? No one's doing that. No one's even talking about what that means. There's not activity going on to go even post up desks and pull members in, but you decided to blaze the trail and do it anyways. And so, before Amanda started off with Bamboo, I first came to know her because she was a writer and she had a e-newsletter kind of like publication called Missionpreneur. Is that what it was? Yeah. Where she was like the first person kind of going through and trying to tell the story about what entrepreneurship meant throughout the state of Michigan. And so she was a great person to follow and keep up on activity and all and everything at that point in time. So then you go from doing that to having this idea to you said with your friends where you're like, why not do something? How does that come to be?
So to give a little more context, we were going to networking events and we just needed somewhere to go to work on our ideas. Our business partner, Mike Ferlito, his dad had a building and one of the floors had been empty for 10 years. And looking back, I don't think anyone would pick this space for an incubator or a co-working space. It was above a Bales Bond and below a music studio. So, interesting area. Also a block down from Tiger Stadium. We'd have drunk people walk in asking if there were startups to invest in, like just literally off the street. And it was only 2,000 square feet. We had no money. We said to Mike's dad, like, can we test out a business model? Give us a year. Give us $5,000 because we literally have no money. We'll buy some IKEA furniture and paint, but the spirit and the community and the energy really resonated at that time. And so we always say we took I don't know if lean startup is still a thing people talk about, but we took like a lean startup approach to just piloting this idea and then growing it from there and building up customers and community first. It's definitely a much slower way to go. And it's hard to do in real estate to convince someone to give you a risk. And we had that opportunity with our friend's dad to try that out. But he had little risks because he had no one paying rent and he could still shop the space while we tested out our model.
What gave you confidence to test it? What gave you confidence to try this? You had never been involved in that realm before. This was totally brand new. You were, maybe like 23, 4, 5?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. 25 maybe, I don't know. It was just fun and it felt really low risk. Like we're just borrowing $5,000. We're just doing something for a year. It was like a side project and we had other ideas we were testing at the time. So for those who are entrepreneurial, like sometimes something starts as a side project. It might be the side project you ignore for a while and then realize it's the one that has momentum. That's kind of what happened, really.
Okay. And then in the midst of this, you kind of become tapped to be the CEO of this new thing that's getting started up. How did you feel about that? How did you
those are great questions. We had 4 founders, so we were 4 friends. And again, we were working on a lot of other ideas too. Like we started a marketing agency. We had app ideas, and those kind of all got scrapped. But we realized a co-working or physical real estate, it's smaller, it's slower moving. It can take a while to bootstrap. So 2 of our partners moved on to other opportunities, sometimes outside of the state. And my partner, Mike, and I stayed on, and someone had to take the lead. I think that's a challenge when you have multiple co-founders. I see it often with our companies. It's great to not do something solo. You want others to support you, whether that's advisors, a co-founder, or an early, strong team. That is so, so helpful. But you do usually need someone to be the CEO and the decision maker. And I kind of was doing that already, so it was a natural fit for me to step in. But I also really struggled with the title of CEO. I think being a woman and not even thinking this was a path, it was a side project, it kind of felt like a fake title for a while. I had to learn and embody it and just kind of grow into it, I think. That was a lot to probably unpack, but.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you just to unpack that a little further. So, what I hear you describing is you felt like you had some imposter syndrome. I'm not a CEO. I didn't go to business school. I don't know what I'm doing with this. But to your point, what you were already doing and how you were engaging with your colleagues was already the mindset and kind of the approach a CEO would have to take. What did you do, and what should they otherwise bear in mind if they put themselves in that position, or if they find themselves in the position of feeling like they're an imposter? When you look back, what advice did someone give you, or how did you end up kind of coming through to the other side of that, or embracing that, no, this was a fit for you and you were good at it?
That's a great question. I think surrounding yourself with a lot of other entrepreneurs, listening to podcasts, reading, just learning from others gave me confidence. Having mentors gave me confidence, and then really just doing it. 10 years later, now I have confidence when I can analyze a location, go to my funding partners, secure funding, launch. It's still a lot of hard work. There's still some doubts, but you also learn that your doubts are just fear, and you can kind of look at that objectively and analyze it and poke holes in your own model. So some of it, I think, is just constantly surrounding yourself with uplifting, inspiring people who are doing it. I think that makes you believe you can do it too. And then just learning and being real and growing into it, that kind of gave me the confidence too.
Outside of kind of surrounding yourself with those people and then learning as you're growing with it, were there any big impactful decisions that were made early on that really empowered Bamboo to survive those first couple years of growth when there wasn't the activity there is today?
Yeah, I think some of those early decisions were like, so we started as this side project. We had some first customers. We were trying to bootstrap real estate. All of that is hard to kind of do. And at some point you have to decide, like, is this going to be a business model? How do you make it? It wasn't sustainable yet. We couldn't hire and pay people to run it, but we could pay our bills. So there was a lot of like bootstrapping decisions on how to really figure out a model that could be self-sustaining. And it took a couple years. We realized we needed to have bigger space, have space for companies to start and scale, really refining how we operate. I think we just really needed several years to figure that all out. And again, this is real estate. It's slower moving. It's risky. It's risky in some ways. You sign leases. You need capital. You have to build things out. But I think some of that applies to all kinds of industries or technologies. Like, you really need to spend time figuring out your model. So a lot of those decisions early on just kept changing, I think.
What was the original model? Like, what was the pivot?
Our first model was to sign a lease and then sublease and share that. That's very similar to WeWork or some other large brands you may have heard of or seen movies on. We then evolved to our second location to become real estate developers, where we do bring in investors, acquire property, and then we own and operate the property. For us, we made that decision after operating for a few years. We wanted to control the experience. Co-working and entrepreneurial communities, for us, it's like there's a hospitality element. And if we're going to sign a 10 or 20 year lease, that's a lot of commitment. And we wanted to really like own that experience. So owning the real estate gave us that control and maybe long-term equity we could build. So for our second location in Royal Oak, we evolved that to being a developer. And then we've done that, and now in Ann Arbor and Grand Rapids. Actually, the space picture you showed, our second Detroit location, it's a giant school that's being renovated. That's a totally different model too, where it's more of a partnership management style. So I think it just took us a while to figure out what is a business model that works for us, that gives us more capital, more like long-term sustainability, and sort of evolving to being real estate developers was that route that we took.
So would you say that you've gone through maybe 3 to 4 pivots in the business model over the course of the 12 years you've been in business?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Take note of that.
And then that's a way to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So for folks out here who are thinking about becoming founders, as the majority of you have said you're interested in doing, what advice do you want to give to them? What do they need to know about considering whether to take funding and investors from the outside or continue to bootstrap along the way? And show of hands, how many people understand bootstrap, what that means? Okay, cool.
Okay, bootstrap means you're really volunteering your time and getting sales and customers first, and maybe lending, getting loans or grants or crowdfunding. You're not giving away equity in your business yet. When you take on an investor, you are giving equity into something. For us, it's equity into the properties. And our investor is a mentor and friend of ours for over 10 years. And then we've actually welcomed more investors in new markets, which has been fun. I think when you get to that point of needing or considering an investor, for me, I just felt like I had to be very confident that we were ready and that was what we wanted to do. So I think it just took us a few years to get there. I don't know if I answered your question, but I think taking on an investor is like a very big decision, and you need to also find ones that are going to add value to you. You can get capital from anywhere. So bringing in people who are going to also either unlock a revenue path or mentorship for you, or be, just very aligned, I think is really what, worked for us.
And obviously those factors were present in the investors you took on. How did you ensure they were present as you scaled your investors and as you brought in other folks who you didn't know, who weren't friends, the like?
Yeah, we actually only recently brought in other investors in our Grand Rapids market. We kind of crowdfunded from like 8 to 9 different entrepreneurs and family offices, which I love, because now I feel like we have more people who own equity in that project and are really aligned to filling it. In Grand Rapids, we're opening a 40,000 square foot art gallery space that we're renovating into a center for entrepreneurship. We have an incubator partner, we have corporate innovation partners, and we have like a whole floor of AI technology companies moving in. It's really, really fun. And I think that project is off to a great start because we had so many people backing it and supporting it. And I think that helped because we opened it up to, letting people also have the upside of, if we all succeed, they get to win and succeed too.
Got it. So, as we're talking about this, you're hearing about the expansion that she's going through now with Grand Rapids. You're seeing a picture of the second office in Detroit that they're opening and renovating right now. But I frankly didn't really know. What's your guess? What is the growth rate for co-working spaces as a whole, year to year? The correct answer, as I learned actually yesterday, is 15%. 15% year-to-year growth in co-working.
Yeah.
I was shocked by that.
I don't remember where that came from, but that was a fact like about a year ago, yeah.
Yeah. And so talk to us about the factors here, because I've had conversations with you. I've been pretty openly skeptical. Like, is there really the demand for co-working spaces in Grand Rapids, a second one in Detroit, and so on? And you're onto something.
I think, too, our spaces operate differently. They're very much like centers for entrepreneurship. So you have startups, you have investors, you have density, you have creative people. It's kind of like finding your tribe. But our industry says that a lot of corporates, it's just been an interesting 5 years since the pandemic, and not everybody is going back to an office full time. Some of them are virtual, some of them are hybrid. Startup teams tend to be virtual longer. Corporations, we just signed up a large corporation that's downsizing from 400 desks and multiple floors of a building downtown to 20 desks in a co-working space. So corporates are kind of entering our industry. But that said, I think it's also kind of real estate is kind of really hyper local. So it really just depends on the market down to the block that you're in and that community and where people want to be. So for us, finding really iconic locations has been helpful, like the one in Grand Rapids we've mentioned. I think every city has like a different real estate challenge, though. So it just depends on where you're at in the market and in the city.
So as you're continuing to build out and open these new locations, you've got a new influx of clientele and customers, to your point, that you haven't had pre-pandemic with corporates and all. How do you pull them in without losing some of the communal aspects that go along with having nothing but early stage startup founders there and kind of like ideation level folks? What's the...
I think that's like a operational question. So like if you're building physical space, or even if you're thinking about like a team, it's all about culture and like that culture you're building, all the way down to like who greets you, how do they welcome you into a community. I mean, we've had people, we do tons of free events. We have office hours with VCs. We have meetups. 1 Million Cups here in Ann Arbor is a great meetup if you're interested in entrepreneurship. They just get together every Wednesday morning, 8:30 to 10, free coffee. So we have just like a different experience that makes it really welcoming and allows the corporates to bump into the startups, to bump into the remote worker. I think all of that is just the culture and the people you hire and how you really activate that space really creates that experience. Co-working for us is like, it's kind of like hospitality, and hospitality is how you make people feel. Community is how you help people connect. So if you are building a brand or thinking about community models, if this is helpful for anybody thinking about different business models, there is like a challenge, like how do you build a community but not make it feel transactional? I think that's all into how you operate in the culture and the experience you define. I mean, even the word community comes from common unity. It's like helping people find common ground. And so for us, we just do that a lot through like programming, through the people we hire who serve. We even call them community coordinators and community directors. Some places call them managers or like front desk team. Like the names that we give our team members even set that tone that like you are here to create connections and make sure people don't just walk into a building and walk out and don't meet their co-founder, don't find their first investor, or don't feel welcome. So I don't know if that was probably a very long answer to your question on how do you manage new clients coming in, but I think like it's all about the culture and the experience.
Great answer.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. And you'll notice that terminology, right? Like where else do you hear front desk agent? Like I'm hotel, right? Or like that whole notion of hospitality and creating an environment where people want to be and where they feel like they're part of something. And this notion about building community and having that be core to really your business model sounds like it was stemming from your childhood and your interest in otherwise kind of having that in your own. This is what you've written.
I know, you really did like research, Eric.
Make an attempt.
I think too for me, and this might be different for everyone based on their experiences, but like for me, I really love and passionate about what I do, and I think that sometimes comes from things that are lacking. So like I came from a family that was very working class. My parents were divorced. my Black Middle Eastern family in the city was very isolated from opportunities in the suburbs that my white middle class family had. And so that really felt like a lens that I saw, and like also part of what we do at Bamboo is to try to be very diverse and inclusive. And I know those words maybe aren't cool to use in today's corporate environment.
No, they're still cool
but
here.
For us, that's all about like creating access and opportunity. And like often people who come from less resources are more entrepreneurial. They like our most successful entrepreneurs at Bamboo are immigrant founders who have had like literally no resources and are now like Series B startups scaling and getting offers for acquisitions. And it's just like you need more opportunity for more people if you want to create a better landscape, especially here in Michigan. We have a really diverse population here in Ann Arbor, in Detroit, and so that's been always really something we think about intentionally in that culture that we build. And ultimately, we want our members to succeed, grow, even maybe scale out of our companies and invest in the next generation of founders. So the more people, I think, succeeding in Michigan, the more impact we're gonna make.
And the notion about immigrant founders is not just true for Bamboo. That is true statistically across every sector you go to. So something to bear in mind that we'll talk more about as the semester continues to kind of go on. So it sounds really great that we're going to build community. It sounds like, okay, we're sold on like this is a core part, but of course the devil's in the details and the how. You've written a little bit about the notion about how to do that and kind of what the key pillars are. What have those been for Bamboo? And were there any that you over the years were like, oh, I thought that was one, but it's not, or we never even thought about this?
I think something that's now that we've been operating 10 years, and I think this is true in a lot of different ways, but communities evolve and ecosystems evolve. So some things that might work when you're starting out might totally change 5 years down the road when you have different customers or different like post-pandemic landscape. Like during the pandemic, people did not want to talk to each other and were masked up and not interacting. We were literally opening a location. We took like all our savings and put it in our second location, and 3 months later, the whole world shut down. And that was a really interesting experience to go through during a pandemic. But now post-pandemic, it's very social. People still call us and they'll say, I've been working at home 2 or 3 years. I need to get out of my house. I haven't met a single new person in like the past 2 years. So there's this element of remote work that's very, very isolating for people. And you may probably feel that as a student now, like you need social community, like you need those connections. So for us, a lot of community building comes from one-on-one connections and events and opportunities to create that social fabric in our spaces. And probably all these things I said before that I didn't know you put on a slide.
One of those things you said was about how difficult it is to measure success in a community. And that's also been my experience. So I've done alumni relations for CFE for 10 years now. And if someone asked me, well, how is this year statistically different than 10 years ago or the like, that's a really tough answer about how the value of building community and what that means intrinsically. But you called out the notion of magic moments. What are magic moments at Bamboo?
Yeah, I feel like we do a bad job of telling our story. We've just been like in the background building for the last 10 years. And the magic moments, I think, are things we need to tell stories about. That's like the startup in Detroit that we had one person enter as a solo programmer who then teamed up with a founder, became their CTO, and they ended up growing and scaling their company. We've actually had people get married. I don't promote that though. So the magic moments are, I think, those connections that happen that then just change the trajectory of someone's business. And whether that's in a co-working space or on campus, like you do want to find a community you can participate in because it's going to accelerate and help unlock those connections. You don't know what they are till you're on your journey, but those are the moments we like to celebrate at Bamboo. Another one might be like our member Arash. He leads our 1 Million Cups meetup, which is like just a community event that's free for people to participate. His mom passed away about a year ago, and he has such a special connection to Bamboo as a third place that he donated an arbor tree on our rooftop to honor his mom passing away a year ago. And so like that special connection we have with our members where they feel that like this space is theirs too, and they want to like honor it or donate things is kind of fun as well, and a magic moment that I think, we'll always remember too.
I love that. And I feel like that kind of touches on one of your points about let members lead when possible and kind of inviting others to participate and take some ownership, whether it's the investors or whether it's members who have a moment or a touch that they want to put on. But of course, that's not always permissible and that's not always good. Have there been moments when otherwise you had to check somebody or check an investor on trying to lead something?
We don't have that challenge with our investors. They're all amazing humans. But I think in any community, so right now, for more context, we're 3 locations growing to 5. We're a team of 8 growing to 14. I'm the only one over the team besides some fractional COO and CFO help. Each location has only 2 or 3 humans. And so letting our members partner or sponsor or encouraging them to lead events, it's a win-win for everybody. They're bringing energy to our space, creating community with us, and then we're empowering them to reach their goals or build their community too. In any community, you're going to have some, bad apples or people who break rules, or in co-working, people who never learned to share growing up, and you got to teach them how to share. But I think you just kind of figure out how to navigate those things. Culture is very important, so I think your question is spot on. If you're trying to create a very supportive, inclusive culture, how do you protect that and keep that as a safe space? I think those are great questions to think about if anybody here is building community.
Okay. And, if you had to sum it up in one tip of how you actually protect that and keep that and maintain that, what would it be in hindsight?
I know this is going to sound
'Cause you do
repetitive,
it and it
but
works,
I
but
think
yeah.
it's comes down to culture and values. We hire really great humans who care and come from hospitality or community. I'm super pumped. I hired a former founder who's returning to run one of our new centers. And it's just hiring people who do care. When you have a challenge, we just were working through a challenge that I won't get into the details on here, but my advice to the team was just be very gentle, be very kind, be very professional and clear. And that's, you do learn if you work in hospitality or people, you learn how to handle those difficult moments too, Mm-hmm. But that culture and the people you hire should treat people in a way that feels good, even if you're breaking up.
And you haven't called it this, but one of the 6 constructs of the entrepreneurial mindset that we talked about as the crux of what we're going to work on in class here is the whole idea of relationship management. That if you want to be a founder, you want to be an entrepreneur, understanding what that means, understanding where to invest, when to pull back, when to push, and the like is absolutely critical. When you think about the relationship management that you've done, you seem to have a very patient approach, and you seem to have a very give first, take later kind of mentality. Yeah?
Yeah, I think we got that from, we used to host a lot of Techstars programs, and they always had that mantra, give first. I think that's a really great mantra to think about, and having open connections with others, because you don't know where that's going to lead down the road. If you are more relational than transactional, I think in the Midwest and in Michigan in particular, we're very relational when we do business, and all of that does go a long way. I forget what your question was again. You have
It wasn't a question.
question.
It's more of a statement about relationship management.
About relationship management. So yeah, I think one thing I wish I knew when I was in my 20s and stumbling into starting this journey, I have friends who are so good at relationship management. They go and they meet people first and they do coffee, and then they circle back later to share what they're building. I think those approaches are so much more helpful. I do think we did this really well in Grand Rapids right now. The last 2 years, the project there is very visible. It's right on their Main Street. If anyone knows the Grand Rapids area, it's the 2nd largest city in Michigan. It has one of the fastest growing tri-county areas, and it is an art gallery space right on their Main that had been shut down and inactive for a few years. So everybody in this community knows this property. It was the Art Prize headquarters a couple years ago. So 30,000 people went through that building in just 1 week. And in order to redevelop that property, we had to really ask for help from the city and from others. We had to go get a grant from the state of Michigan. We had to apply for tax abatement, things we had never done that is sometimes common in real estate development. And so that my whole approach for 2 years was to just meet with people, get coffee, tell them about our vision, get their feedback. I then collected all this feedback and summarized it into top themes. And then we started executing on those things. And we started saying, this is how we're going to do this for the community. And that mindset really made us, I think, have some success now before opening. We're 60% pre-leased, which is pretty great compared to our other past locations. And I think it's because we co-created with that community in that market for 2 years before actually opening our doors. I think that's a long time. Again, real estate development moves very slow, but that was something that was really helpful from a relationship building and management standpoint, whether it was the city or all these other stakeholders that are impacted by our $9 million development that we're opening in a couple months.
Well, you answered one of the students' questions without realizing it with the idea of what did you know before you started business. And I want to thank you all incredibly. I was so impressed to see how many questions you submitted, how many you upvoted. Like, round of applause to y'all. Kudos on that. That was your top question, the notion of what do you wish you would have known before you started business. Is Grant Richmond here?
Oh, you called them out.
Oh, there you go, Grant. You're over there. You had a great question that was the second most upvoted. How did you build interest in the company initially?
Yeah, I think that was an example of doing literally just being clear on our vision and then doing all these coffee meetings like customer discovery. And then in Grand Rapids too, we then partnered with an anchor tenant. So if you can find a big partner to launch with that just shares your values and is already reaching your community. One of the Start Garden, they're our anchor partner, the incubator. One of the guys said, yeah, we're instantly your community now because they're moving in and bringing hundreds of people in too. So I think those things all helped generate early interest as that example for that project.
Absolutely. Eileen Kayla, are you out there? Eileen Kayla? Oh, cool. Right behind Grant. Who knew? You had a great question, too, that a lot of people upvoted. And so this was the idea of asking what helped you stay motivated during Bamboo's early days before you hit success, before you hit traction, when you got everybody coming in off the street, kind of like making a mockery of what you're doing there. And what would your advice be to founders who feel discouraged by rejection or slow progress?
I think having like a why or a passion like really helps. So I was very motivated to build community, discovered that was my passion by doing this project. And I just sort of felt like if we didn't do it, who else was going to do it, especially at that time in Detroit. All of our people would have been displaced if we didn't move and grow and continue down our path. I could see it. I think this is, being an in-person company, we could see the impact we were making every day. Like people were coming in every day using our product, forming teams, starting companies. That sort of impact kept inspiring us to go. The pandemic years was a whole chapter that was very hard. Like, what do you do when you're a physical space and your government tells you you have to close down? And then you care about safe space and doing events, but you can't really do anything. So that was a very difficult. Honestly, I think we're just coming out of the tail end of it financially and culturally in some of our cities. So what probably motivated me then too, I think, I don't know, honestly, it was a tough one. Probably just knowing that impact and having that why as much as you can and surrounding yourself with those positive people. I have a very supportive husband who is also an entrepreneur, a very supportive family. Not everybody has that, but it helps so that, you don't have people saying, why don't you quit and go get a job every week? That can be really tough to have in your head too.
Love that. Avery Bogdasarian, you out there? It's a great question. A lot of y'all upvoted as well, and that was the idea of what expertise do you feel like you needed or you were really glad you had when you started?
I had a little background in social media marketing, which was really helpful. I had worked in advertising a couple years before getting laid off and starting Bamboo. I also worked in hospitality and didn't realize later that like working in restaurants or retail was like super helpful. What I didn't have was financial acumen and like formal business school training. So I did participate in a program actually with U of M and Michigan and Forum for women. I don't know if they still have this program. It was framed as a mini MBA for a week, and they really honed in on women learning the financials. And I think that was very, very helpful. So I took advantage of a lot of free small business programs, which in Michigan, there's a lot of opportunities. Obviously, you're all here to learn and doing great at that. But there's also accelerators and spaces and classes that you can take to just learn and grow. And then having that like mentorship around me so you can actually learn from people who have built and scaled companies. I think you're going to have advisors or experts, but if they haven't built and scaled a company, it's a very different journey. And the more you are around people who've done it, the like more helpful feedback you're going to get.
Yeah, learning by osmosis. Sort. Absolutely. I have a couple other questions here, but I want to give you all a chance. Anything that you haven't heard that you want to know or you want to ask? Shoot a hand up if so. What you got?
What was the criteria that made you down select if coming down with Bamboo that you did not go for it?
People paying us and needing space, and then that multiplying and growing, and like so having real actual, I think, customers pulling us in that direction.
Yeah. So the market kind of pulled you in that direction of
Yes.
sort. And to your point about not realizing or appreciating that your hospitality experience would come into play, I feel like you are likely to hear something similar to that from almost every speaker who comes through here. Kind of listen for it and you'll pick up on it. The more experience you have directly engaging with a customer, a client of some sort, be it for someone else's business, be it for that one-off dinner, be it for starting a company itself, the more you will start to appreciate and have a mindset that really starts to look at what is that customer asking for? What are they looking for? What is it that they are trying to communicate even if they're not saying those words? And that will end up being what informs what it is you're delivering as your product, your service, your offering for your business.
Yeah, 100%. The closer you can be to your customer, I think about it as co-creating. So like as much feedback you can get when you're building something, oftentimes first, like there's no phrases that I think can summarize it, but I often hear that first-time founders, they obsess over their idea. Second-time founders look for channel and scale for sales. So like sometimes you have to let go of the idea and focus more on the problem, and you're going to figure out what that is that you're selling and creating to solve that. And then for those more experienced founders, you do see them trying to find those like partnerships that are going to help them sell faster and scale and get that product market pull as fast as possible.
So when we talked and I surveyed y'all last week, you said the number one thing that intimidated you about entrepreneurship was knowing whether or not your idea was valuable and whether your idea had enough there to launch a company off of. What are your tips for how they can evaluate that?
I think you just got to do it. I think you just got to put your idea out there, get feedback, start building, get customers. You're just not going to know until you do it. And then that idea could change 10 times, but maybe it'll also change 10 times better. You just don't know until you start the process.
Just taking action around it. Speaking of taking action around it, as I told you earlier, Amanda's someone who has always answered the call. She did that also in 2020, and she came and she did E-Hour here with one of my colleagues. And it occurred to me that I said to my colleague, I was like, oh, Amanda's here like all the time. She's done E-Hour like several times before. And then when I looked back, I was like, no, she has not. That's totally misremembering. But because you're always there to say yes and you're always willing to do things with us, I just assumed that you were. But 5 years, there's been a lot of change since 2020. If you could give some advice to 2020 Amanda, what would that be?
I don't think she would believe that I'd be sitting here in 2025 with two really dream projects that I'm working on and like doubling the size of our team and company. She would not believe that at all because 2020 we were shutting down and we were like hiding and we were in survival mode for several years. Everything from grants and loans to just. I remember in 2020, the advice for startups was plan for 2 years of this. 2 years of financials, worst case scenario. And every year we would be like, worst case scenario. And we were like, this won't happen. And then we were living it. And so that was really a really hard, dark period to go through. You guys are all blessed to not have to start a company in a pandemic, but you'll have your own challenges. And those down years and those crises, I think, really teach you so much more. Like, after this growth cycle, I think we're going to really aim for some stability for a while because even while you're growing, you have challenges. All your resources can be committed to growth. We have to hire quickly and onboard quickly, which Kelly, our COO, she's also a teacher here at University of Michigan, has been fantastic at helping us. But there's like a whole other new wave of challenges. But now I have a little more confidence in hindsight to like, it's kind of fun. It's an opportunity and it's a moment and you don't always get those. So really just trying to like enjoy that too while we go through it.
What's a pro tip they need to know for how to build a sustainable founder life where you're not burning out and you're not just doing everything for your business and you have no social life, no family, no whatever? What would you done?
I don't know. I would love to know that. I have two little ones. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And then, I'm doing a lot for the company, but you're a human. You need to just not always be productive and always be working. I think I was at an AI event and somebody was talking about how, with AI, you're going to need less and less time to do your work, and what are you going to fill your time with? And I just thought, why can't we just be human for a little while? Why are we always looking for that next productivity hack and way to grow faster? But I don't think there's an answer. For me, it's just been finding support as much as I can. Grandma is involved, daycare. You just figure it out. There's no perfect time to start a company or family or whatever else is going on. And you need to be a human and take care of yourself too.
Love that. And as you're picking up throughout all of this, Amanda is somebody who's always looking towards the future, and this is something that she wrote earlier this spring that ties in perfectly with our theme for the semester. Optimism. An entrepreneurial lens is an optimistic lens and a future-facing lens. What keeps you believing that there's something better ahead?
These questions are all so good. I don't know. I think you have to believe that things can be better than the way they were in the past. Otherwise, what are you building for? You have to, I think if you're an entrepreneur, you're solving problems. So whether it's, the state of your government or your community, you are always trying to improve and contribute something positive in the world. And I think that's more fun and more impactful. So I don't know how to answer this question. I think it's just how a state of being in a mindset that you need to adopt. And it's definitely hard. You're going to have failures and lessons learned and so many ups and downs. The mental health of being an entrepreneur is really challenging. And I think you just need to find those core things to help stabilize you too.
Love that. Well, we could have a conversation for another 3 hours, but we have to cut class because it is time. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Appreciate you. Come on up. Talk to Amanda afterwards. Yeah.
Guys, you guys are all welcome to come to our Ann Arbor location. We're at 200 South 1st Street next to the Blind Pig. We have free events. We have student memberships. We'll give everybody a free week pass if you want to come hang. Come meet people, network. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Awesome. Thank you very much.